Welcome to the I Love Coaching podcast, the show where we help coaches, entrepreneurs, and leaders build businesses that create massive impact. I'm Adam Roach, alongside my incredible co-host,
Jess Weber, and we're here today to bring you the best strategies, mindset shifts, and real-life success stories to help you level up in your coaching journey.
Whether you're launching your coaching business, scaling to 6 or 7 figures, or just looking for inspiration to push through, this podcast is your go-to resource.
We're bringing you expert insights, real talk, and actionable items every single episode. So if you're ready to take your coaching game to the next level,
then let's dive on in. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the I Love Coaching podcast. As I clear my throat, my name is Adam Roach. I'm your host, along with my co-host,
Jess Weber. And I am so excited to have this conversation with you today. I feel a little jazzed, I'm ready to go.
Me too. I don't drink coffee. And though every once in a while, I would like to try a cup of coffee, maybe a cup of espresso, Jess. That would be fun. Maybe I could see what that would look like. No?
I can't imagine you on that much caffeine.
Well, let's take that energy, that caffeine-induced Adam on espresso energy, and let's talk about value and money around coaching. You want to?
I think that's a great conversation to have today. I know we just talked in the last couple episodes about being intentional with what you're spending your time on through learning and how you audit your calendar. So I think this is a very natural conversation. Next is the perception of value and how you spend your money and how you make your money.
Yep. No, I want to talk solely about when coaches come into the community, how they are scared to talk about their prices, right? Because let's just cut to the brass tacks of stuff. In the absence of value, we all know it comes to money, right? People think about money. When we ran market centers and people would leave us, it was like, well, I'm going somewhere where it's cheaper because it's too expensive here, which really is just a telling sign that the value they were receiving or not receiving did not measure up to the dollars and cents that they were spending, right?
Very true.
Yep.
And often it's based around their expectations versus their actions and their reality. And that's always a fascinating thing to audit.
And that's great language, expectations. So if you're in a coaching space, or if you're stepping into a coaching space, or if you're just in a generalized space where you have a price tag next to your time, which everybody should, Jess, it's what expectations are you setting? Right. And we've heard this before, over promising and under delivering, or under delivering and over. Wait a minute, it's the same thing. Yeah, I think I did have some caffeine there. Opposite of that, right? The opposite. And so many people over promise.
They do. They overpromise and they underdeliver. And we've experienced that. We've seen it. I was going to say born witness to it. That was the first place my head was going. But it's so true that so often people haven't figured out the fine art of balancing value and price. And so they struggle with, I want to deliver a lot because I want to charge a premium price. And yet at the same time, their excitement, their vigor around the sale or something like that will cause them to overpromise, and then they can't deliver because they haven't set a standard, they haven't set expectations, and they don't deliver at the same level or the same standard every time. And so then that imbalance becomes a pain point, whether it's a week into a relationship or 3 months or 3 years down the line, when somebody takes the time to actually step back and look and be like, wait a minute, there's a lack of alignment here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting too, because I remember first of all, I love sales. I think I love sales simply because I love providing value and aligning it with wherever someone is looking to grow to. Though I can remember a point in time in my sales career, specifically maybe even as a tennis recruiter or a team leader recruiter, where I felt I had to overpromise because that would get them in the door, when that really is just an insecurity of the one selling, because they don't believe that they have enough value, so they have to overpromise. And then when they underdeliver, it's so much worse. So I love that you said that, taking a step back and understanding truly what value are you going to be offering to someone, and then actually letting that be what they buy. And then you feel so much better because you can deliver on it.
Well, I think we're dancing around it, but the key there is confidence versus fear.
That's
And
good.
that comes from knowing truly who you are and how you can help people and what you offer. And so that way you can accurately articulate either your product or your service. And so you go into any sale with confidence and you can say your number with confidence and you can deliver with confidence because you have clarity around that and you're not operating from a space of fear where you keep trying to add value just to convince somebody of making a purchase.
And how often do we see that with coaches that come into the community is they have mastered this space, right? And you've all heard us say this on this podcast over and over and over. We call them real coaches because they're relevant, experiential, authentic, and they're leaders. And we know that a leader is an influencer, and what's an influencer do? Get someone to take action. So they come into the community. Gosh, though, is it so fascinating and interesting to watch as they have 10, 15, 20 years of experience in this one vertical. And then when it comes time to putting a price tag on it, they get scared. They get fear-based. They get, oh my gosh, will anyone really pay that number? And that number is so low. It's fascinating. It's just so fascinating to watch.
It is. And it's because they've been told what they're worth in their industry. Their pricing and their value has been dictated by a consumer. And when they have the opportunity to set their own standard, they don't know how to do it.
No.
And that is such a fascinating thing. I mean, I even struggle with it. The way that I jokingly overcome it is I tell any coach that comes into our world, I'm like, double your price. And if that doesn't make you uncomfortable, double it again. Because truly, you need to hit a price that you know is value. It's an exchange of your time, your energy, your product, your service for money, and it needs to feel valuable. And if you are pricing too low, then you are going to feel the strain of that low price point very quickly once you've actually made the sale at that low price point.
That's right.
And so go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I was having an interesting conversation with a team leader the other day, a Keller Williams team leader, who wanted to step in and be a coach. And we were having this conversation right here because sometimes on these introductory calls that I have with some of these wannabe coaches is I will put them on the spot and I'll say, let me ask you a question. If you were going to coach me one-on-one, what would you charge me? Jess, it is without fail, there is crickets on the phone at that time. Literally, it goes to crickets. And their first reply back is, I don't know. And then I would say, okay, let me ask you a question. Now, again, I'm just specifically using this avatar. How big is your real estate brokerage? How many agents? They'll say 450. Great. How much in volume does your brokerage do? I don't know. I think last year was $1.2 billion. Okay. And how many staff members do you have? I've got 7 of them. Okay. I said, now let me put this in perspective. Let's say that you're in the audience and you see someone up on stage and they're up on stage and they say, my company has done $1.2 billion in sales. I have 450 salespeople, and I have a staff of 7 to 8 people. And they say, I'm going to offer one-on-one coaching. How much would you pay for that coach? Oh my gosh, I don't know. I'd probably pay, $4,000 or $5,000 a month to learn from that person. I'm like, ding, 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 ding. There you go. So let me ask the question again. How much would you charge me? And it's just so interesting the way that people see themselves, because I think you nailed it on the head. That avatar, now I'm just talking solely about that avatar. They're a W-2 type person, right? And we've had many podcasts about being a W-2 versus entrepreneur, but they're a W-2 type person. When they can get out of that mindset and step into the entrepreneurial mindset, which is understanding time value of money, understanding you're not trading your time for money anymore by someone else, now you get to put a big price tag on what we call proximity.
Oh, and I think that's another key point there is they're operating in a space where it's comfortable to have somebody else tell you what you're worth, your time versus your money. And it becomes uncomfortable when you have to define yourself by your own worth, your own value, because you're like, there's a lot of imposter syndrome that goes into it. There's a lot of fear that nobody will accept that dollar that you attach, or people will laugh in your face. You'll be rejected in some capacity. And it's a fascinating thing to watch coaches go through a learning process of articulating their value and adding a price tag to it. I'm sitting here, we've mentioned before, I operate in a lot of different spaces. And one thing that I do is I show up in social media, like Facebook groups and things like that, and provide value because that's a way that I can establish myself as authority and lead generate. And I am in several ADHD entrepreneurial groups. And somebody posted the other day about what's the average cost for an ADHD coach that helps you with executive functioning. And every coach that replied that said they were an ADHD coach said they'd charge between $100 and $200 a session. And my mind was blown because I said, on average, coaches in our community, they coach, for $1,500 to $3,000 a month. And that's an average of 2 hours a month. And so going from, I charge $200 a session to I charge $2,000 a month. Like the ADHD coaches, when they saw my reply, kind of freaked out. They're like, what? And I said, yeah, that's the average, and they could not handle it. And so now it's created an opportunity for me to have conversations with these other coaches about value and proximity and understanding all these things and, helping them think bigger too, because so much, I think part of the problem with pricing is people think so small of themselves and their vision is so small because the first vision or the first goal is to get out of the box.
Yeah, that's so true. And that's why I absolutely love coaching coaches, is because that right there with our vision statement to empower coaches. So let's just stop right there. Well, I'll give the whole vision statement. To empower coaches to change and serve 100 million people through our Real Coach method. To empower coaches, that doesn't mean just to empower them to go get clients. That really means to empower them to step into their true genius, to empower them to step into a space that now they're getting their true monetary value in exchange for the experience that they've gone through. And that is so rewarding to me to watch them. And it's fascinating as we're sitting here having the conversation. I mean, it's $8,000 a year to join our community, Jess. In my opinion, it should be $80,000 to join our community for the value that we give these coaches to go out and take that investment and go 2, 3, 5, sometimes 10x that investment and coaching coaches in the space of setting their monetary value is so fun to me because it's such a psychological thing. Yeah, I think you also nailed it a few minutes ago with the word rejection, right? With the word rejection, because no one wants to feel the word rejection. Though when I first started working with Dan Martell and he was like, what's your conversion rate? And I said, well, it's close to 92%. And he said, that sucks. I thought, wow, I've never had a coach push me to 100%. And he was like, no, you idiot. We're going to go backwards. I want you to be anywhere between 30 to 40% conversion rate for either one-on-one, which it actually probably should be lower than that for one-on-one, and coming into your community, because you don't want every Tom, Dick, and Harry to come into your community or coach with you one-on-one, because if you're converting at 100%, you're too cheap. You're too cheap. And I'll never forget the move that he did with me, which was genius. We had a one-on-one coaching call and he said, yes, I'll coach you one-on-one. It's $125,000. You have to wire me all the money up front and then we will start our coaching program. I was like, oh, that's out of the budget, so I can't do it. He's like, okay, well, nice talking to you. And then when he came back and he's like, hey, I got an idea. There are many people out there like you that can't afford me one-on-one right now. So what if I created an entrepreneurial group type thing? And it's $6,000 for the year at that time. Now I think it's like $10,000. And I was like, absolutely, let's do it. But you saw how fast it went from $125,000 to $6,000. Proximity to him, I was like, absolutely, sign me up. I didn't even hesitate. And now I think we're year 3 into that. And we've spent so much money in his organization, so much money with organizations next to him because he's brought so much value. And it probably has added up to $125,000, if not more.
Exactly.
But that's it. Proximity should be that. And don't be afraid to get rejected, because your conversion rate for one-on-one should be low. Real quick before we land this plane, I think a great exercise for everyone to do is part of our blueprint. And that is to go into really dive into, so for the listeners right now, this is what I suggest to do if you want to looking for your price associated with the value that you bring, is we call this going into your shaping activities. Duh. I mean, how many times have I taught that? And your character shaping activities. Go back and take a second and go through every character shaping event that you've ever been through. If you want to have some fun with it, put a price tag that you can align with that character shaping event that you had to pay to go get that, right? So I can go back and I can say the very first time I met John Maxwell in 2010, I had to put $5,000 on that. Now I've traveled the world with John Maxwell, and it probably exceeds well over $250,000. And that's value that I can bring. Throw in the Dans of the world, throw in all the people that we've surrounded ourselves, my GoBundance world, right? Character shaping events. And the value there that you get to bring to so many people is exponentially greater than probably what you're thinking right now. Yep. Very, very true. Okay. I got to land this plane because guess what? I have someone that's paid me for my time in a one-on-one coaching session, Jess, and I got to run to him right now. That's right. Thanks, everybody. See you next time. See you. Bye.